These engines never saw the water. They never fought a wave, never pushed through a storm, never ran a single mile at full throttle. And yet, they're destroyed. Exposed wires, cracked blocks, thousands of dollars in damage, all from sitting still. Every year, more outboards die in storage than on the open water. Not from use, from neglect, from mistakes their owners never knew they were making. The cold doesn't ask permission. It doesn't send a warning. It just breaks things. And by the time spring comes, it's already too late. But here's what the dealers won't tell you, and what the manufacturers bury in the fine print. There's a protocol, 11 steps, used by certified technicians to protect engines worth tens of thousands of dollars. Today, we're going to expose exactly how winter destroys outboards from the inside out. And then, step by step, we'll show you how to stop it. Before we dive in, drop a comment below. Have you ever lost an engine? Or know someone who did? Because of a storage mistake. I want to hear your story. And if you're serious about protecting your investment, hit subscribe and tap that bell icon so you never miss another investigation like this one. Now, let's start with the part no one talks about. Walk into any boat show in America and you'll see them. Gleaming outboard motors mounted on pristine transoms, surrounded by banners that promise power, reliability, and freedom. The marketing is deliberate. The language is carefully chosen. Built to endure. Marine-grade aluminum. Corrosion-resistant engineering. These phrases aren't accidents. They're designed to make you believe that an outboard motor is invincible. And for a moment, standing there under the showroom lights, you believe it. You imagine yourself cutting through chop at 40 miles an hour. You picture sunrise fishing trips and weekend escapes to that quiet cove nobody else knows about. The salesman talks horsepower and torque and fuel efficiency. He shows you the sleek cowling, the digital gauges, the quiet idle. Everything about the experience says one thing: this machine is tough. This machine will last. What nobody mentions, not the salesman, not the brochure, not the promotional video playing on loop behind the display, is what happens when the season ends. What happens when the temperature drops and the boat sits idle for 4 months, 5 months, sometimes 6. Because here's the truth the marine industry doesn't advertise. Outboard motors are engineered for use, not for storage. Every component, every system, every seal and gasket is designed with one assumption: that water is flowing, fuel is burning, and parts are moving. The moment those things stop, the vulnerabilities begin. Most owners never think about this. And why would they? They've been told their engine is built for harsh conditions. They've watched it run flawlessly through summer after summer. They assume that if it can handle saltwater spray and pounding waves, it can certainly handle sitting in a garage. This is the first mistake. And it's the most common one. Surveys conducted across marine service centers in North America reveal a pattern that repeats every spring. Technicians report that more than 60% of winter damage repairs come from owners who genuinely believed they had winterized correctly. These aren't careless people. They're not neglectful. They simply didn't know what they didn't know. They drained the fuel, but didn't treat what remained in the lines. They covered the boat, but left water trapped inside the engine block. They stored the motor tilted down, not realizing that this single decision would allow water to pool in the power head, freeze, and crack the aluminum from the inside. The confidence was there. The knowledge wasn't. And then there's the dealer's role in all of this. At the point of sale, winterization is rarely emphasized. It's mentioned, perhaps, in passing. A pamphlet is handed over. A service package is offered, optional of course. But when a buyer is already committing $10,000, $20,000, sometimes $40,000 to a new outboard, the last thing a salesman wants to do is complicate the moment with maintenance warnings. So the conversation moves on. The deal closes. And the owner drives away believing they've just purchased something bulletproof. One service manager at a dealership in Minnesota put it bluntly. "We tell them it's important," he said. But when they hear it's another $200 or $300 on top of everything else, a lot of guys say they'll handle it themselves. And then we see them in April with a cracked block, asking how this could have happened. The answer, of course, is that it was always going to happen. Not because the engine was flawed, not because the owner was negligent, but because no one ever explained what winter actually does to a machine that was never designed to sit still. That explanation begins now. To understand how winter kills an outboard, you have to understand one simple fact about water. When water freezes, it expands, not by a little, by nearly 9%. That might not sound like much until you realize what it means inside a closed metal space. An outboard motor's cooling system is not like the one in your car. There's no closed loop, no antifreeze circulating through protected channels. Instead, outboards use raw water cooling. They pull water directly from the lake or ocean, circulate it through the engine to absorb heat, and then expel it. It's elegant, it's efficient, and it's vulnerable. When you shut down your engine for the last time in autumn, water doesn't magically disappear from the system. It lingers in the water pump housing, in the passages around the cylinders, in the thermostat cavity, in dozens of small spaces you can't see and probably don't know exist. Now imagine the temperature drops below 32 degrees. That trapped water begins to freeze. As it freezes, it expands. And as it expands, it pushes against the walls of those passages with a force that aluminum was never designed to resist. The result is invisible at first. Hairline cracks, warped housings, damage that won't reveal itself until you try to start the engine in spring, and coolant leaks from places it was never supposed to escape. By then, the repair bill is already written, and it's not a small one. But freezing water is only the beginning. Let's talk about fuel. Specifically, let's talk about ethanol. If you filled up at a gas station in the last 15 years, you've pumped ethanol-blended fuel. Most gasoline in the United States contains 10 to 15% ethanol, labeled E10 or E15 at the pump. For cars, this is manageable. For marine engines, it's a slow poison. Ethanol is hygroscopic. That means it attracts and absorbs moisture from the air. Every time you open your fuel tank, every time humidity shifts, ethanol pulls water molecules into your fuel. During the boating season, this isn't catastrophic. You're burning through fuel fast enough that it doesn't accumulate. But in storage, the clock starts ticking. After 30 to 60 days of sitting idle, ethanol-blended fuel begins to separate. The ethanol and water sink to the bottom of the tank, forming a corrosive layer that attacks everything it touches. Fuel lines, carburetor bowls, injector tips, seals, and gaskets. The damage is chemical, gradual, and often undetected until the engine refuses to start or starts and runs so poorly that something has clearly gone wrong. Service technicians have a term for what they find when they open up a fuel system after a bad winter: varnish. It's a sticky residue left behind when unstabilized fuel degrades. It clogs jets, fouls injectors, and turns a simple spring commissioning into a four-figure repair. And then there's corrosion, the silent, invisible creep that happens inside the engine itself. When an outboard sits unused, condensation forms on internal metal surfaces. Cylinder walls, piston rings, bearings. Without a protective oil barrier, that moisture begins to oxidize the metal. Rust forms. Pitting develops. The precise tolerances that allow an engine to run smoothly are compromised, one microscopic layer at a time. This is why fogging oil exists, to coat those internal surfaces and seal out moisture. But many owners skip this step entirely, either because they don't know about it or because they assume it's unnecessary. By the time spring arrives, the damage is done, and the engine that looked perfect in October now carries wounds that will shorten its life by years. The physics of winter damage are universal. They apply to every outboard, in every climate where temperatures dip below freezing. But the cost, the real human cost, is always personal. Consider a man we'll call Richard. I am 58 years old, recently retired after 3 decades in manufacturing. He lives outside Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where winters are long and lakes freeze solid by December. In the spring of 2021, Richard bought himself a gift he'd been dreaming about for years: a new boat powered by a 300-horsepower 4-stroke outboard. The total package cost him just over $52,000. For one glorious summer, he used it exactly as he'd imagined: weekend fishing trips with his brother, evening cruises with his wife, a 4th of July outing with his grandchildren that he still talks about today. When autumn came, Richard did what he thought was right. He ran the fuel tank low. He covered the boat with a heavy tarp. He tilted the motor down, the way he'd seen it stored at the marina for years, and parked it in his driveway. He didn't know that tilting the motor down traps water inside the power head. He didn't know that leaving untreated fuel in the system invites chemical degradation. He didn't know that a single winter could undo everything. By April, when he tried to start the engine for the first time, it turned over but wouldn't catch. A week later, a technician delivered the diagnosis: cracked power head, destroyed water pump, corroded fuel injectors. The repair estimate came to $9,400. Richard didn't pay for it. He couldn't justify spending that much on an engine he'd owned for less than a year. Instead, he sold the boat at a loss. Took $17,000 for a rig he'd paid more than $50,000 for. The buyer knew about the damage. That's why the price was so low. "I thought I was doing everything right," Richard said later. "I've owned boats my whole life. Nobody ever told me." His story is not unusual. It's not even rare. It's one of thousands that play out every spring across the northern United States and Canada. Marine service centers know the pattern well. Every year, as soon as the ice melts, the phones start ringing. Owners who stored their boats over winter discover that something is wrong. The engine won't start. It's leaking fluid. It's making a sound it never made before. The backlog begins almost immediately. Wait times of 4 to 6 weeks become standard. In bad years, it stretches to 8. That means owners who expected to be on the water in early May are still waiting in mid-June, watching the season slip away while their boat sits in a repair queue. Service managers estimate that 25 to 35% of their spring workload is directly caused by improper winterization, not manufacturing defects, not normal wear, just owners who didn't know the protocol or thought they could skip it. And then there's the question of resale value. The used outboard market is driven by trust. Buyers want to know that an engine has been maintained, that it hasn't been abused, that it will deliver years of reliable service. A well-documented maintenance history, including proper winterization records, can add 10 to 15% to an engine's resale price. Conversely, an engine with unknown storage history becomes a gamble, and buyers don't like to gamble with 5-figure purchases. An outboard motor is not just a machine, it's an asset. For many owners, it represents years of saving, planning, and anticipation. And every winter, that asset is either preserved or destroyed by decisions made in a single afternoon. The good news is that those decisions are entirely within your control. What you're about to learn is not theory. It's not guesswork. It's the exact process used by certified marine technicians at authorized service centers across North America. 11 steps, 2 to 3 hours of work, and the difference between an engine that lasts 15 years and one that doesn't survive its first winter. Step 1. Flush the cooling system. Connect a set of flush muffs to your garden hose and attach them to the water intakes on the lower unit. Turn on the water, then start the engine. Let it run at idle for 10 to 15 minutes. This pushes out salt, sand, sediment, and mineral deposits that would otherwise corrode the internal passages over winter. For saltwater boaters, this step is non-negotiable. Step 2. Treat the fuel. You have 2 options. For carbureted engines, drain the fuel system completely. Tank, lines, and carburetor bowls. For fuel-injected engines, fill the tank to 90% capacity with fresh fuel, add a marine-grade stabilizer rated for ethanol, and run the engine for 10 minutes to circulate the treated fuel through every component. A full tank leaves less room for air, which means less condensation and less moisture absorption. Step 3. Fog the engine. With the engine running, spray fogging oil into the air intake or throttle body. Continue spraying until the engine stalls from oil saturation. This coats the cylinder walls, piston rings, and other internal surfaces with a protective barrier that seals out moisture for months. Without this step, condensation will corrode those surfaces before spring arrives. Step 4. Change the engine oil and filter. Used oil contains acids and combustion byproducts that attack bearings and seals over time. Drain it completely, replace the filter, and refill with manufacturer-recommended oil. Run the engine briefly to circulate the fresh oil before final shutdown. Step 5. Service the lower unit. Drain the gear oil and inspect it carefully. If it appears milky or contains water droplets, your seals may be compromised. Schedule a professional inspection. If the oil is clean, refill with the recommended gear lube. This single step prevents the majority of freeze-related lower unit failures. Step 6. Grease all fittings. Locate every grease point, the tilt tube, steering linkage, prop shaft, and apply marine-grade grease until the old grease is displaced. This seals out moisture and keeps mechanical components moving freely. Step 7. Maintain the battery. Disconnect the terminals, clean them with a baking soda solution, and apply anti-corrosion spray. Store the battery in a cool, dry place and connect it to a trickle charger or maintainer. A fully discharged battery can suffer permanent damage within weeks. Step 8. Protect the trim and tilt system. Lower the engine fully and apply corrosion inhibitor to the exposed hydraulic rams. Pitted chrome leads to seal failure, a repair that costs far more than a can of protectant. Step 9. Position the engine correctly. This is critical. Store the motor tilted up or in the vertical trailering position. Never store it tilted down. Water trapped in the power head will freeze, expand, and crack the block. This single mistake destroys more engines than any other. Step 10. Protect external surfaces. Wash the cowling and external components with fresh water. Apply a spray-on corrosion inhibitor to all metal surfaces. Cover the engine with a breathable cover. Never sealed plastic, which traps moisture inside. Step 11. Document everything. Record the date, the products used, and any issues you observed. Keep receipts. This maintenance history protects your warranty, supports insurance claims, and adds measurable value when you sell. 11 steps. Each one simple. Each one essential. Together, they form a shield against everything winter can throw at your engine. By now, you understand the threat. You understand the science. You understand exactly what needs to be done to protect your engine from the silent destruction of winter. But before we close, there's a larger question worth considering. One that speaks to the relationship between the marine industry and the people it serves. Why isn't this information more widely known? The owner's manual that came with your outboard contains winterization instructions. They're there, somewhere between the warranty disclaimers and the specifications charts. But they're rarely emphasized. They're written in technical language that assumes a level of knowledge most recreational boaters don't have, and they're easy to overlook entirely. At the dealership, winterization is often presented as an optional service, something you can add on if you want, but not essential. The focus is on closing the sale, not on preparing the buyer for what comes after. When you're already writing a check for tens of thousands of dollars, no one wants to complicate the moment with warnings about storage protocols and seasonal maintenance. The result is a knowledge gap. Owners leave the dealership confident in their purchase but unaware of its vulnerabilities. They trust that a machine this expensive, this advanced, this heavily marketed as durable can take care of itself. And then winter comes. Some in the industry argue that the information is available for anyone who seeks it. That's true, but availability is not the same as accessibility. It's not the same as education, and when the cost of ignorance is measured in thousands of dollars and destroyed engines, the burden of responsibility deserves a harder look. This is not about blame, it's about awareness. And now that you have it, you hold something valuable, something that changes your position entirely. You are no longer dependent on what a dealer tells you or doesn't tell you. You are no longer guessing about what matters and what doesn't. You have the protocol. You have the understanding. You have the ability to protect your investment yourself or to verify with confidence that someone else has done it correctly. That's not a small thing. In a world where a single afternoon of neglect can cost more than a year's worth of fuel and maintenance combined, knowledge is leverage. It's protection, it's power, and perhaps that's the deeper lesson here. An outboard motor is one of the most sophisticated machines most people will ever own. It converts chemical energy into thrust. It manages heat and pressure and friction at levels that would destroy lesser equipment. It's engineered to survive impacts with water at 60 miles per hour, to shrug off salt and spray and years of hard use. But it cannot survive neglect. Winter doesn't kill outboards. Ignorance does. The cold is just the weapon. And now, you're no longer unarmed. The 11 steps we've outlined today take 2 to 3 hours to complete. They cost a fraction of what a single repair would, and they stand between your engine and the silent, invisible damage that claims thousands of motors every year. This fall, when the leaves turn and the water grows cold, and the boat comes out for the last time, you'll face a choice. You can do what most owners do, cover it up, walk away, and hope for the best. Or you can follow the protocol, document your work, and know, with certainty, that your engine will be ready when spring returns. The choice is yours, but now at least it's an informed one. Take care of your engine this winter. and it will take care of you for years to come. Stay informed, stay skeptical, and stay on the water.